We don't hate American people. You know, we never use the term gringo.
Miguel Alejandro Figueres represents the Cuban Ministry of Tourism. He'd prefer you look past Cuba's politics and see its potential. He says Cuba's doors are open for American travelers, but it's too bad that the U.S. government won't let you come in. Well, chances are pretty good that most of you have taken a Caribbean vacation at some point or another. The Bahamas, Jamaica, Grand Cayman, perhaps. Think of what you spent in terms of the airfare, the hotel, food, and entertainment. Well, all of that money is money that Cuba wishes you had spent with them. Proximity-wise, Cuba is the closest Caribbean island to the U.S., and I can tell you it's just as pretty. Too bad you can't go see it for yourself. Not anymore. Of course, there was a time when Cuba was America's Caribbean playground, but the U.S. embargo and the travel ban there stopped that more than 40 years ago.
Hello.
In 2006, more than 2 million tourists took their vacations in Havana, mostly from Europe, Spain, and Canada. In fact, did you know? Cuba is the #1 Caribbean destination for Canadians, and it ranks 8th among the top 25 Caribbean destinations for tourists everywhere. Before the U.S. embargo in 1962, Americans accounted for half of all Cuban tourism revenue, but when the embargo slammed that door shut, it sucked the air out of the local economy. The Cuban government estimates that since the embargo, Cuba has lost $20 billion. Money the country desperately wants to recoup.
Well, we started to receive tourists at the early 80s from Canada, Europe, and then we saw an opportunity there. We have to build new hotels. We have to build causeway to link the cays with the mainland. We had 3 international airports. Now we have 10 international airports. That was a very high investment. We started with 13,000 rooms. Now we have nearly 44,000 rooms.
And all of this directly attributed to more tourists coming to Havana and to Cuba.
To Cuba, yes, yes.
Are you disappointed that you don't see more Americans here?
Americans like Cuba. It is safe. Cuba is the safest place for Americans. It's safe for them. They enjoy here. So it's a government problem. It's not a problem. It's not ours.
And so for those Americans who come in through the back door, through Mexico, through Canada, you welcome them with open arms.
For us, all Americans are legal tourists. We don't know what is back door. They come here. We love them to come here.
If the embargo, the travel ban were lifted tomorrow, is Cuba ready to receive the American tourists?
That's a question many times I have received, and I will answer the same thing. We are ready for the first million.
You're ready for the first million?
Yes. And the estimate of your think tanks is that we will receive 2.5, 3 million, and I say, well, for the other 2 million, let us know.
Let you know.
Let us know on time, because we have to make some arrangement.
So you estimate then that if the travel ban is lifted, you would see annually 2.5 to 3 million?
Not our estimate. It's the American think tank's estimate. It's
How much money could that translate to in terms of for your economy?
That will double our income.
It would double the income.
Yeah, I told you before, 2,200 million. Now it probably will be double that.
Figueres tells me they've invested heavily to make that happen. Here's how Cuba breaks down their estimation of what American companies are losing based on every 1 million Americans not allowed to visit. The airlines would lose 300 million. Travel agencies, 160 million. Advertising and media, 30 million. The food and beverage industries, 45 million. And all other imports combined account for another $30 million. Grand total, $565 million lost to the American economy. What goods does the U.S. produce that Cuba could use the most?
Well, I think that a lot of food, beverage, technological products.
Food, beverages?
Yes, you have very good technology in some...
Technology?
Technology, there's air conditioning system, lift, Buses,
Buses,
cars for rental.
cars for rental. Your auto system could use improvement.
Yes.
Your transportation system is in desperate need of improvement.
Yes, in general, is right, but we have our own system, transportation system for the tourist industry. We have companies specialized in tourist transportation.
Let me come back to something. What does Cuba produce that the U.S. could benefit from most?
Citrus, for example.
Citrus.
Nickel. We are the third or fourth producer of nickel and cobalt in the world right now.
Do you hope for the day that the travel ban can be lifted, that your doors can be open?
Some days, we know that sooner or later that will happen.
Tell me finally, what is your golden rule for tourism in Cuba?
Quality.
Quality. And you think you will be competitive?
Now, that is the golden rule we have been using for the last 15 years. They have to produce with quality, with good prices, and on time. Time is very important for the tourist industry.
Yes. And when and if Americans are allowed to come to Cuba freely, will they be surprised?
I think it's a mistake.
Pleasantly surprised?
Yes, they will be very pleasantly surprised.
You heard mention of Americans traveling to Cuba through the back door by way of Canada, Mexico, the Bahamas, or Jamaica. Last year, 36,000 adventurous Americans did that because the island is off limits. It adds to the mystique and to the allure. But you risk a heavy price for a bite of Cuba's forbidden fruit. If you're caught, it could possibly cost you your passport and thousands of dollars in fines.